Well, welcome back, everybody. This is our next, we'll say our next sessions in our webinar series. A little different this time. We're going to be, trying something different. We're going to have our TAM and sales. We're going to do joint webinars going, for this next little bit and see how, the feedback is on those. So today we're talking about some of the new product highlights from last year, specifically ZWave automation devices. So we'll be talking about IQ Lockdown, the IQ Water Valve, and the IQ dimmer. So I just want to, we'll get moving here. Please find the questions box, drop in where you're calling from. We'd love to say hi to you. And then we'll get some polls going, and then I'll hand this off to Kevin and Chris. As most of you know, Kevin is our global director for our TAM team, so he is all of our bosses. And Chris is our sales manager from the Central Mountain Territory. So they were gracious enough to want to do this webinar today. And as you've probably seen in the email, these are 2 webinar series, so 2 chunks, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Lather, rinse, repeat. We're going to follow that process for the next little bit. So I'm just going to get these polls started right now while everybody's just getting settled. All right, here we go. First poll. Do you know someone who's experienced flood damage from a leak? It's pretty easy. It's yes or no. I have. Luckily, we're not talking about my case study today. But looks like, wow, 95% of you know someone who's experienced flood damage from a leak. That's incredibly high. 96%. All right, we'll just give that one a couple more seconds. All right, we kind of stable off around the 95%. That's great. Thank you very much for answering that. Let's go one next poll. We're only gonna have 4. So, do you currently install a water shutoff solution? So it's a yes, plumber required, yes, no plumber required, or a no. Let's see. All right, so over 50% of you so far are on the no side, but yet you know someone who's suffered from some water damage. So it's a pretty even mix, about 25% for plumber, 25% for no plumber, and just about 50% for no. Well, hopefully we can change that and get those number up, especially for the yes, no plumber required. But we'll talk about that soon. All right, 2 more nice quick ones. Do you currently install a ZWave dimmer plug-in module? Yes or no? All right, here we go. It's like watching a horse race over here, watching the charts moving. About 70% of you are currently installing some form of ZWave dimmer plug-in module. That's great. Everybody's really engaged. I've never seen this level of engagement on these polls. This is awesome. We'll just leave that one off, close it off. And then the last one, and then I'll hand this off to Kevin and Chris. Do you install at customer locations which require a no wire run locking solution? So something where you need to have the ability to lock a door without having, the ability to run a wire, or not wanting to run a wire, I guess is the key. Oh, wow. So yeah, about 70% of you are looking for some kind of no wire run locking solution, or currently installing a no wire run locking solution. So that's incredible. All right, well, thank you very much. I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to go hide in the background and answer some questions, and we'll let Kevin and Chris take off.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Neil. Thank you so much for the intro. Chris and I, as we were preparing for this, we were joking we should just call this the 2 Bald Guys webinar. So thanks for having us today, and thanks for listening. We're definitely excited to be here. Really appreciate everyone participating in the polls. That definitely helps us with information, helps us gauge and kind of tailor the conversation here a little bit to your unique needs and kind of where you're at. And also wanted to mention that there are a bunch of handouts as well in the dashboard there that you guys can please download kind of while we're talking. You should be able to do that simultaneously. There's a really nice case study on the IQ Water Valve. There's the IQ Dimmer Quick Guide with some nice specs. There's a lockdown sheet, lockdown flyer, and then as well as a water valve quick guide with some nice, quick, easy installation methods. So please take some time to go ahead and download those PDFs. I think they'll really help you out. And with that, before we get started, kind of the one thing I was thinking about is, well, what do all 3 of these devices have in common? One's a water valve, one's a a lockdown device and one's a dimmer, seemingly very disparate devices. But what they have in common is that they're all Z-Wave devices. And so before we start talking about the devices individually, we wanted to do a little Z-Wave 101. I think at this point, most people are pretty familiar with the protocol, but it's always good to review some best practices. And so we'll take just a few seconds here to talk about that. So as you likely know, Z-Wave is a mesh network. And essentially what that means is devices can hop from one device to another device to another device to get back to the controller. Now, powered devices are inherently going to be repeaters. So that's like plug-in dimmer modules. Our IQ water valve is a powered device. Thermostats can kind of go both ways. They can be powered or non-powered. So if you have a C wire, your thermostat's going to be powered. But door locks, for example, are battery devices, non-powered, right? So they're not going to be a repeater. And then the other thing to keep in mind is it's a maximum of 4 hops. So you can't repeat forever. You can only hop 4 times. Second thing to remember is we always like to say clear then add. That's the language we use on the panel. You could say exclude then include. That's some of more of the Z-Wave typical language you might see. But you always want to clear it, wipe its memory before you add it to your new network. And that's because devices are tested at the factory. So even if they're brand new out of the box, they might have gotten tested on a bench somewhere. They might still be learning to do that previous controller. You're kind of banging your head against a wall, trying to pair it to your new panel. It won't pair. So a really simple thing to do is clear it first, then add it. If you do that every time, it's going to be super smooth. All right, and the third thing is learn locks in close. So locks are kind of unique devices. They have codes, they transmit those codes over the air. Those codes need to be encrypted and secure. And so because of that secure enrollment procedure, you want the lock to be super close to the panel when you learn it in. And so sometimes you forget that. You get the lock all mounted on the door, you got your panel mounted on the wall, your wire already ran, they're 30 feet apart. You're like, I haven't learned this in yet. So much easier to do that up front before you install the lock. Learn it in right next to the panel within 3 feet. Leave it next to the panel for about 5 minutes or so it can pass secure enrollment, pass any codes back and forth it needs to, and then go ahead and install it. And then the fourth kind of best practice I like to call out is what we call network-wide inclusion. And that basically means start close to the panel and then work your way out. And what that allows, Z-Wave adopted something new, NWI, network-wide inclusion, where it allows devices to hop through other devices even while being learned. So you can take advantage of that mesh network to learn devices that are far away by learning in devices that are closer first. Chris, anything to add to the best practices there that you've seen or thought of?
Yeah, I guess the last question would be, once we've done all of that, then I suggest that you do a refresh of the entire network.
Oh, I love that.
That way you can make sure all the pathways are working like they should. And anytime you go in to make adjustments with the Z-Wave network, I think that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and in fact, that's a really good point. And we have that right on the panel. Of course, you can do that remotely from Mobile Tech or from alarm.com as well. But we've got really great diagnostic tools directly on the panel. One of those right here in the middle is, here is called, that's our rediscover screen. So you can rediscover an individual node, or you can quickly rediscover the entire network. You can see what we call neighbor nodes. That tells you how many devices, a Z-Wave device can see. So the potential route that it could hop through. And you can also really track your failed versus acknowledged commands. We call that counters. And that gives you a really good overview of the reliability of the network that you've built over time. That's tracking in the background all the time. Maybe you come back later to add another device or for a service call. You can go in there and you can see, hey, this LAMP module has tried to communicate 200 times, 196 times it's passed. And really what we're looking for there is what we call an efficiency percentage. And we want to have a 98% efficient network. That's the goal. So 98 out of 100 commands should pass. And you can actually see that right on the panel screen. And then of course, my favorite is the Z-Wave map here. We actually get the visual representation of what's happening from device to device back to the panel, how many hops, the signal strength, we call that RSSI. So this map's a little bit older, but the new map actually shows the DBM, the actual raw value signal strength, as well as the color coding, which is kind of nice. So make sure you're taking advantage of these tools on the panel for all of the Z-Wave devices that we're going to talk about today. and I think you'll have a really great experience as you install them. All right, so with that, we are going to jump right into the IQ water valve. This device has been out for maybe a little over a year now, and so you may have seen a previous webinar on this device or seen it on the website, but maybe you just don't know much about it or haven't had a chance to use it yet. We want to talk about that a little bit today. So one of the most interesting things for me is some of these stats. We call it water damage by the numbers. And, you know, water damage is one of those things that can go from bad to worse in a very short period of time and can be very expensive in a very short period of time. So some pretty interesting numbers on here. You see something like 98% of basements in the US will experience an issue with water. Mr. Neil Jones knows that well. He can share his story with you sometime. And you know, about $6,900 in damage is the average damage to a home that gets water damage. This top right I found really interesting. It says, what does that say? 1 trillion gallons. Water leaks from US homes can exceed 1 trillion gallons in a year. That's more than the annual water usage of Los Angeles, Chicago, and Miami combined. Pretty crazy. Chris, how about you? You ever had any issues with water in your home?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked. First time I had an issue was pretty typical. You know, an ice maker in my combination fridge freezer had a tiny little leak on it. And it was such a slow leak that it wasn't obvious until the hardwood floor started to buckle up. So that really was not a lot of fun. That was followed up by something similar under the dishwasher. And then for me, the king daddy of them all was a plumbing line that fed my sprinkler system froze inside the house and blew out the valve. So yeah, you could sell me one of these every other day of the week. And based on what, you know, Neil's poll was, I think it's a pretty common thing for most people. You know, I'm relatively handy, so I fixed most of the stuff myself and didn't end up having to do an insurance claim. But, you know, just, I think my homeowner's insurance starts at about $1,000 for a deductible, and then, you know, it's likely to go up. So I think without a doubt, this is really something that we could add on to virtually every install, because it's just super easy to do. And, you know, we don't need a plumber.
Yeah, you know, I'm crossing my fingers still. I've been pretty lucky in the water department over the years as a homeowner, but sounds like you maybe got my fair share in your home, Chris.
Yep, but guess what? It's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say on that point, you know, I think our industry has done really well with flood sensors. They've been around a long time. I don't know how long, as long as I've been around. And we install a lot of flood sensors in homes, all different kinds. We have S-Line, we have Power G, lots of different floods, hardwire. Anyway, I think you know, our industry is very accustomed to selling flood sensors. The problem is, you know, when a flood sensor goes off, okay, so now you know about it, but what if you're not home? You know, and this is kind of what happened to Neil. You know, he was just across town, but that 30-minute drive back home from the time he got the alert, you know, was a significant, you know, pretty significant in terms of the amount of water and damage that actually occurred. And so, while I think we've done a good job as an industry, we have not selling water sensors. We have not done a good job selling water shutoff solutions. And I have to ask myself, well, why is that? And I think historically the reason is they've been expensive. They're very cost prohibitive, right? All the valves that have been on the market to date really have been, you know, $300 to $500 for just the valve. And then you have to pay a plumber to come cut that valve in. Sometimes you're cutting sheetrock and running electric and making other repairs along with that. You know, before you know it, to really sell a water valve solution to a customer, I think is probably a minimum of $1,000. And that's if you want to make any money at all. You might need to sell it for more than that. And so I just think it's been very cost prohibitive. It's kind of been a market we've been timid to get into. You have to schedule the plumber a different day. You know, you can't just get it done while you're there. And so that's one of the things that really excites me about the IQ water valve is it's a retrofit solution, installs in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I think our last webinar, we had Jason's 5-year-old son install it live for the webinar. That's how easy it is. And so we'll get into that a little bit. Before we dive into the rest of that, I want to watch a quick video here. I think it does a pretty good job explaining it. Sometimes these videos can be a little choppy here on GoToWebinar. I apologize for that. This video is on our website as well. Also, if you're watching this recording later, it should play pretty well. But with that, we will go ahead and watch this.
Did you know in the United States, there's 14,000 people that experience a flood every day?
What? 14,000?
Number.
That's a massive number. I heard that 98% of basements will have some sort of leak in their lifetime.
Wow.
Water damage is actually not all that uncommon. If you look at the statistics from insurance companies, they'll tell you that's one of their #1 claims. In fact, I believe it's over $6,700 is the average claim for a flood in a home. So really, really expensive. Now, I got to ask you,
Okay.
what would you do if you had a flood in your house?
Well, luckily, I have flood sensors installed. So I have these in my bathrooms and kitchen under the sinks. I have one in my laundry room next to my water heater. So if water is detected, I'm getting notified.
So let's say that you get one of those alerts and maybe you're not even home. What do?
Panic a little bit, right? I'm wondering how bad the flood is. Do I know how to turn the water off to that certain water source?
Do you know how to turn the water off to your water heater?
No.
No.
Really, I'm gonna hope my husband's home, right?
Well, I hope he is
to know.
too. I hope he is too. But the great thing is with these devices, you now know that those things are happening and you can take action instead of finding out, hours later that leak occurred. Well, we've got something that enhances that whole experience even more, and it's called the water shutoff valve. So every house has one place where the water comes into the home. Okay, whether it's a home or apartment or business, there's one spot where the water comes in. That's called the water main. And it's got a big handle. Most of them have a big handle where you can twist it and turn the water off. Now that shuts off the water to the whole entire house. The way this works is it attaches very easily to your existing water main in your house. This will automatically shut off the water for you when water is detected by one of your flood sensors. So it detects the water, sends a signal to the panel sends a signal to the water shutoff valve and says, shut off all the water. Now all the water is shut off remotely, whether you're home or not, and then you can take the appropriate action. When you get home, you can decide, do I want to turn it back on? Do I want to clean the leak? Do I need to fix something? You can take the appropriate action before turning the water back on yourself.
All right. So hopefully that played okay. I know it could be a little choppy, but I think a really great example of some of the benefits that the IQ water valve can offer. All right, Chris, give us the overview here.
Okay, so before I even start with the overview, one of the situations here that I was asked to go out and walk a job for really surprised me recently. I had one of my dealers who, a very nice house here in the Denver area. They had installed an expensive inline plumber solution, but there was one thing that it couldn't do that ours does, and that is remotely operate the valve. This guy had a beautiful house in the Denver area, but also a nice house in Mexico. And, he wanted to be able to turn off the water remotely, even if it's not an emergency. And with our ZWave water shutoff valve, he could do that. So we actually ended up putting it in on top of this expensive solution to give him that feature, which was real important. But I can tell you the cost to install ours was, probably 25% of what he spent otherwise. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Diving in, go ahead.
I'd say that's awesome. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. It doesn't necessarily have to be an emergency. Maybe it's a second home, maybe it's cold or you're away on vacation or just for the weekend, right? And you want to be able to remotely operate that valve just in case.
Yep. Cool. So just diving into the details a little bit. This is an extremely easy product to install. Like Kevin said, Jason's 4-year-old does it on a video. So, and I'm kind of the ultimate idiot test. I'm a sales guy with an art degree. If I can install it, literally all of you guys and girls can. I would say it's a 5 minutes tops. You know, you clamp it on as long as the pipe is between 1/2 inch and 1 1/4 inch, and it's a ball valve. All you do is clamp it on twice and plug it in. So there's no plumber required at all. It's an easy install. And a great thing is that for you installers and business owners who want to make extra money right then and there on the day of the install, if you're carrying a couple of these on your truck, you can offer the customer the option to put this in. It'll take you about 5 minutes to learn in, and then it leads to a nice upsale on the actual peripherals, which would be all of the water sensors that you can put throughout the home. So, and again, all we need is a 1/4 turn ball valve, which is just that handle type valve. And that'll work like it says there from a 1/2 inch to 1 1/4 inch. Kevin and I are in the Rocky Mountains, so it's real freezing cold here. And most of our water shutoff valves are in the basement. But for those of you who are lucky to live in sunnier climates, you know, Southern California, Vegas, Arizona, Texas, this is rated for outdoor use. So you can put this outside of the home where the water comes in. And as long as you've got an outlet, either an outdoor outlet, or you could put it, typically it would go on the side of a garage. You know, you can penetrate the wall, stick it in, and then just use the plug-in low-volt transformer and put it in, plug that in so you can put it in exterior use. We'd love it if you would buy an IQ panel with it or a Neo panel with it. But you know what? If I can't get the alarm sale, I'd love to have this paired with any other system that you're using. So as long as you've got ZWave, you know, which typically is going to be an alarm.com, either, you know, with like, for example, a SEM module, this will work with that. All you need is a ZWave controller. The other thing is that you might think to yourself, well, you know, some of these valves are really hard to turn, other are loose. How does the system work? So the cool thing is that once you've clamped down the 2 spots and then plugged it in, during the learn-in process, it's going to go back and forth and test how much torque is necessary. Then it's going to adjust that. So you don't have to do any manual calibration. It'll go ahead and do that. The other thing too, you know, just as a recap for how this works, is you're going to put your sensors throughout the house, and then you're going to write a rule in alarm.com. If the sensor sense water, then it sends a command to shut off the valve. So it's really simple. And then again, it is an extremely affordable solution, and Kevin's going to go through some of the packages and talk about how we bundle this.
Yeah, I did want to mention one other thing too, Chris, on the ZWave 700 or ZWave Plus 700 device. You know, this is one of the more recent ZWave chips out. And, you know, in my particular home, some of that video you saw was shot in my home. And again, my water valve comes in underground from the street into my basement. And where I live in Utah, we do a lot of these cold storage rooms. They're under the porch, basically. They're kind of dug out, and that's where the water valve comes in. And so essentially, you can imagine my cold storage room is essentially, you know, cement foundation that's 8 inches thick, and it's foundation on 4 walls with a little door that goes into this room. And then on the ceiling, it's metal, corrugated metal with 6 inches of cement on top of that. So it's basically a cement bunker. I mean, surrounded on all sides, top, bottom, all 4 sides, and it's in my basement. My panel is up on my main floor, kind of far away. And I thought to myself, man, now if this isn't a test for the ZWave range on this product, I don't know what is. But I installed it and it works great. It gets phenomenal range. I think the only ZWave device that I have between the panel and my ZWave water valve in my basement is my thermostat in my hallway upstairs. And it is a repeating thermostat. So when I looked at it, it was hopping through the thermostat to get to my panel, but it does get great ZWave range with that ZWave Plus 700 radio built in. So really not a lot to worry about there, which is nice.
Hey, Kevin, I'm kind of going to jump ahead a little bit, give everybody a tasty little appetizer here, but that cold storage room You know what you could easily turn that into?
Safe room.
Exactly. So stay tuned
Yeah.
for some exciting things later on that.
That's right. Now we do sell this in 3 different SKUs, and Chris talked about, we do sell it in a standalone water valve SKU, and that would be, you want to buy that if you already had flood sensors installed. Maybe you're retrofitting this on your install base, going back to your customers and offering them an upgrade after the fact, or maybe you're you're using this on a non Qualsys S-Line 319 or Power G panel. Then we do have that standalone water valve that you can buy. However, if you are using it on a Power G panel or an S-Line 319 panel, then we sell it in kits. And in this S-Line kit or this Power G kit, it makes the flood sensors super affordable. They're really aggressively priced when they're packaged as part of the kit versus if you were to kind of buy them all a la carte. So you get to choose your business model, your pick on what works well for you. And I would also just add, if you haven't bought one of these yet, or if you don't have an SPA set up with us, please get with your local territory sales manager. Let's make sure you have an SPA set up through distribution so you're getting the most aggressive price you can get versus just kind of walking in and getting quoted the rack rate distribution. Make sure to reach out to us so that we can make it economical for you and you can afford to offer these on all your jobs.
Yeah, just a little translation there. An SPA is a special pricing agreement. So we have tiered pricing, and we are more than happy to work with you and your preferred distributor. You can either reach out to me individually after the call if you don't have your special pricing set up, and I'll direct you to the appropriate territory account manager, or you can go through your distributor. Either way, we'll get you guys all taken care of. Okay.
Yeah, appreciate that, Chris. Anything else to add on water valve, or should we do lockdown?
No, I think we're good. Just definitely we've had great feedback on it, and I think we've saved your customers a lot of money with this great product.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite for sure, and it's the reason we spent the most time on it so far here on the webinar. We've got 2 other devices to talk about. We're about halfway through. We are going to go a little faster. I don't think we'll take the full remaining half hour here, so stay with us. By the way, we forgot to mention at the top of the hour, but you probably saw it in the registration link. We do have a giveaway at the end. We're going to do a drawing. We won't do it live. We'll do it after the fact, but we are giving away 10 water valve kits, 2 IQ lockdowns, and I think 20 IQ dimmers. So that's 32 individual winners, but you have to stay through the full webinar to qualify. We'll do the drawing, we'll reach out. We'll talk about that here at the end. But anyway, we've got a couple more things to go here, so stick with us just a few more minutes. All right, so with that, I want to talk about lockdown. And lockdown is a really cool device. It's pretty unique. It mounts to the top of a door, a lot like Maglock might mount for access control. And the difference is it doesn't require any wires. It's designed to be wireless. So this is a ZWave device. And I like to think of this as kind of an alternative locking solution, right? So you're all very used to your ZWave locks, your deadbolts, your lever locks. You know where those work. You know where those don't work as well, right? And lockdown is a really great way to address kind of access control style needs, as well as locking and security needs in an alternative format where maybe you can't afford to install a Maglock or access control, or it's just a type of door that a deadbolt, a traditional ZWave deadbolt, is not going to work very well. You don't want to have to deal with keys and numbers and codes. You just want to be able to buzz people in and out. Or like Chris talked about, those safe rooms. We've seen a lot of people start to use these on safe rooms and kind of sell them that way. So look, this is a military grade device. It passes all the FCC and UL compliance that's required for egress on doors. It's ZWave Plus. You can lock and unlock it directly from the panel. You can lock and unlock it directly from alarm.com. It also has kind of an emergency override release from inside the room. It's battery operated. That battery lasts about 2 years. It can simply be recharged with one of those little battery packs, like a battery pack you would use for your phone. You can just plug it into this device and recharge its internal battery every 2 years or so. That battery's monitored through the whole ecosystem. You get to see the battery status on the panel in alarm.com. And it's really designed to kind of work on most doors, in-swing, out-swing, different types of molding, trim, steel, you name it. And it's a really cool device. And I think sometimes when a lot of people hear the word lockdown, unfortunately they think about school shootings, things like that. And we do play in that market. We do address that. We have several of you who we're working with certain school systems to install these. And that's definitely kind of a different market segment. But one of the areas I wanted to focus on today was not that segment, just the other uses for a product like this. And we see that in doctors' offices. We see it in small businesses where maybe it's a strip mall and they have a front door, back door, and maybe a cash room. We're talking 1 lock, 2 locks, 3 locks, 4 locks, those types of instances, not necessarily needing to play in this kind of ginormous campus style solution. So that's kind of one of the things we wanted to bring to your attention today about lockdown. And it's 10 times stronger than a regular deadbolt. I'll have to show you guys some of the test videos sometimes. They have some really cool test jigs they do at some of these test houses where they basically have a battering ram and they crank it up and they against a door a certain number of degrees or feet away from the door, and they release it and they can measure the force on the door, and they go higher and higher and higher and higher until this battering ram is just trying to obliterate the door, and basically the door fails long before the lock fails. Is the gist of those types of tests. So really, really cool and unique. I don't know, Chris, anything you want to add on lockdown?
I think the fact that it is compliant with the various AHJs, the fire code compliant. So because this device is not a device which is powered by AC power, it's battery powered. So you've got a lot of flexibility in terms of where you can install it. And again, I think the affordability of it and the strength of it makes it a really compelling product.
Yeah, I didn't mention the affordability part. When you're comparing to other types of lockdown solutions or maybe a mag lock or other access style solutions, between the cost of the actual product, but especially the labor to install it, again, this is kind of a retrofit solution that's significantly more cost effective. It takes about 20 minutes to install. It's four bolts. There's 2 on the lock, 2 on the catch, and no wires to run. So it really is pretty easy to install. I've installed a bunch myself and no issues. So really like it. And with that, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We're seeing some really creative solutions that are out there with, people exploring different options. I've heard one person recently say they were looking to put it in like a retail location where there's some sketchy people outside, if something's going on to lock the people out. If there's a fight, something going outside, they can, flip a switch from behind the counter and secure that place easily. One of the ones, in addition to other situations that, Kevin's described, cash room, safe room. It's at a pretty much any place where you want to be able to thoroughly lock it down for security so that you can't get into it. That's what we're looking to do here.
Yeah, and one other use case I want to bring up, in fact, I happen to have one here, still in a plastic wrap, but we actually made an aluminum door adapter kit. So we got a lot of questions about this being mounted to like a storefront aluminum door with glass, and could it mount to that? And those kind of have different thicker frames, a little bit different mounting style. So we actually made an adapter kit to fit those, which is pretty cool. So you sparked my memory there, Chris, when you said kind of a storefront and they're looking through the glass and they see something happening out on the front sidewalk of the parking lot. They want to hit a button and just quickly lock that storefront door. We're able to kind of do that. And we do have an adapter kit for that we just kind of are developing now, which is pretty cool. All right, so we're going to move on. lamp module. We call this the IQ dimmer, and we have a couple different ones. So this one is the part number QZ2141. So we call this the 2141. This is our one of our smallest, kind of nicest IQ dimmers that we make. One of the things I really like about this, I mean, look, it's a lamp module. There's a lot of lamp modules out there on the market today, and you got a lot of choice. So I think it's the small things that really make the difference here. And one of my favorite things about this device is actually this little screw tab on top of it. And the reason I like that is a lot of us use lamp modules as dedicated repeaters. Rather than installing a dedicated repeater in a hallway, we want to, install this somewhere, but also have a second use, allow them to not just have it be a dumb device, but also be able to control a lamp. And that screw, make sure that it stays there, and make sure that when you put it in that outlet and screw in the outlet, it stays in that outlet. It doesn't get moved. They don't accidentally unplug it when they're vacuuming and then get a malfunction at a later point in time. And it kind of keeps your network intact. So that little tab, as benign as it is probably my favorite feature of this particular IQ dimmer. Now we've got a lot of other nice features as well. It's ZWave 700, latest and greatest, really good range. It's backlit, so you know when the device is on or off. It works with a whole bunch of different styles of lamps and light bulbs, CFL, fluorescent, LED. Of course, it's got on-off control. It can dim up and down from the panel, from the app. So just a really, good dimmer module. It's ZWave Plus certified with S2 and Smart Start. That means there's a little QR code on the bottom of it. And if you want, you can actually use the panel camera. And during the learning process, you just scan the QR code and then you go plug it in. And when you plug it in, it lights up, auto finds it. It's kind of off and running. It puts in what we call the provisioning list. That's one really easy way to do ZWave is pre-scan all your devices, plug them in, they just work. So that's kind of built in. And of course, this supports network-wide inclusion. So I think my takeaway on the IQ dimmer is that this is kind of by far the best lamp module on the market today. And so if you are using lamp modules, a lot of you said you were, I'd encourage you to give this one a try. We should have plenty of them out there and available for order. And it's really small. That's my other favorite part. Some of the lamp modules are so big, they block a second outlet, or they're horizontal, or they're vertical, or all kinds of different shapes. This one's really small. It's about this small. It does not block the second outlet, so it only takes up one. And I think that's kind of another key design element of this device.
Hey, one other thing I wanted to add, Kevin, is that this device is also included on your special pricing. So all of you that are registered as Qualsys dealers and have got the special pricing worked out with your distributor, you also get a better deal on these as well. I would suggest that, all your installers should have a couple of these on the truck at all times. They're going to help you with getting those 4 hops to the devices, whether it's a door lock, whether it's a ZWave water shutoff valve, the lockdown device, or any of the other ZWave devices that you'll be installing. Because don't forget that, as Kevin had described earlier, the powered devices are the ones that repeat the signal. So, if you've got 3 door locks and that's all you have, I can pretty much promise you that having a couple of these on the install at a minimum are going to be very highly recommended to strengthen that ZWave mesh network.
Yeah, I love that. And look, I see a lot of you guys have been typing in questions here for our team. Looks like we've been getting to most of those. Neil, any unanswered questions or any questions that you think are kind of pertinent for the entire audience here that we want to take here before we close?
No, I think we've answered everything. We've had a lot of questions that Chris addressed already as far as, will this work on any Z-Wave enabled panel? Obviously, we want to see it on a DSE or Qualsys panel, but yes, it will work on Z-Wave panels. And that kind of goes across the board for all 3 devices. There was somebody was asking for other applications besides lamps. I mean, repeaters, Christmas lights, you can come up with just about anything, right? That you can, plug in. Heck, a coffee maker, right, if you really wanted to. But repeater, I agree with Kevin. I mean, the repeater, you know, it's such a small format device. Like it fits so well on those plugs and it doesn't block anything. You know, from a repeater standpoint, it's great. There were some comments about, you know, hey, we shouldn't talk about screwing them in when Canada, you cannot screw anything into a wall plate. So cut the tab off, and you're good. Other than that, I mean, there was some questions of, are we going to make a 3-prong device for stuff that needs rounding down the road?
Yeah, I can answer some of those. So we do we're kind of highlighting this one today because it's my favorite. This is the 2141. So we do make a 2142, which is a 3-prong device here, okay, and does not have the tab. So for you folks in Canada, there you go. You can get the 2142. And we also make IQ outlets. We call these IQ dimmers, but we make IQ outlets. So instead of 2141, it's the 2131. It's the outlet version of this dimmer. So it's got the tab, it's got, and because it's an outlet version, it has different loads that it can control. So typically, this is a dimmer. You don't want to dim an appliance. And that's why oftentimes you'll see dimmers or 2-prong devices. We don't want you plugging something in that should not be dimmed, right? Like a motor or in some type of appliance, a toaster, you know, stuff like that that you don't want to dim. But all the outlet versions are going to be rated for higher loads. They're all going to be 3-prong, and they'll support appliances as well. Sometimes we call those appliance modules for that reason. So kind of lots of choices to choose from: 2141, 2142, 2131, 2132. So different ones out there that we support for those reasons.
Yeah, and Chris in Toronto had a great suggestion. You know, everybody's telco modem constantly freezes. Use it to reboot your telco modem. You know, you won't have that problem if you use IQ Wi-Fi 6. So let's just say, but we'll be talking about that in a couple more weeks. So, you know, everybody, you know, any questions that we haven't got to yet, we will answer after the fact. We did say we would try to keep it, you know, to the 45 minutes. We were going to do all the winners. I just haven't been able to pull them all yet. So what we're going to do is you know, as Kevin mentioned, there's going to be 32 giveaways on this webinar, which is incredible. Very generous. Very generous. So what you're going to do, anybody who is a winner from this webinar, Bo Freeman will be sending an email to you just to validate your shipping information. And I think there was a few people who may have had some technical difficulties and their questions were answered in chat. I just got a message from one. So we will go back to those people who, you know, don't think they got their questions answered, and we will go see what the answer was, and we'll send it to you. So other than that, there is an after workshop survey, as we do on other webinars. We just want to get your feedback, what you liked, what you didn't like. You know, tell us if Kevin and Chris were good or not, and then we'll, you know, and what you want to see in future webinars, so we can make sure that we're meeting and addressing your needs. So Chris, Kevin, anything you want to say to wrap up?
No, I love it, Neil. I would just remind everybody, if you signed up for this webinar, you're auto signed up for next Thursday, like Neil said. And we're going to talk about some really cool PowerG commercial devices you may be less familiar with. So I think that'll be a really interesting webinar as well. And you should, with the one registration and the one download, have 2 calendar invites for this Thursday and next Thursday. So hopefully we'll see everyone there as well.
Yep, and then again, we'll be taking 2 weeks off, and then we'll be coming back with the next little 2-parter, which will be IQ Wi-Fi, and the hotly waited, highly anticipated IQ Remote PowerG. We'll be doing kind of an overview of that. So we wish everybody a great rest of your day, and thanks for joining, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks guys. Bye.